On that day, crew commander of the 16th expedition Yuri Malenchenko, flight engineer Talgat Mussabayev, and space physician Valery Polyakov met the crew of the next expedition: Alexander Viktorenko, Yelena Kondakova, and German astronaut Ulf Merbold. The spacecraft on which they arrived was immediately set to recharge from the station. The spacecraft is essential for your survival. It must always be ready. If its tanks are empty, you won't be able to land. By that time, the Mir station has been functioning for 8 years instead of the prescribed 3. Solar panels pierced by meteor showers were degraded. When the MCC issued a command to fully charge the ship, all station's powerful batteries, Block 800, were already discharged. And terrible process of control moment gyroscope's failure has begun. The huge orbital complex, deprived of electricity, began to lose orientation in space. One by one, all life support systems were shutting down. Complete shutdown. I remember the lights went out, all the consoles stopped working, even the LEDs on the consoles turned off. Complete loss of power. That was very unusual. 6 people, 2 crews were in big trouble, but most terrifying was the silence. You can't experience that on Earth. The cosmic, ominous silence of the abyss. And there is nothing else. 2 ships were docked to the Mir station from different ends. The old one was ours, and the other one was connected not too long ago. Their engines were weak, and the shoulder is short. With these 2 ships we tried to align the station and redirect the batteries towards the sun, although that was also dangerous, because if we ran out of fuel, we won't be able to land back on Earth. We had little fuel to spare. We have been trying to line up the station and to aim the batteries at the sun. But this plan wasn't a success either. The cosmonauts were working in exhausting pace, trying to fix the power supply system. Didn't sleep for 36 hours. Hungry, cold, in a dirty atmosphere and in pitch darkness, without a single sound, and the worst thing, without connection with the Earth. Agate, do you copy? This is the Earth. Report the situation. Why are you silent? Agate, this is the Earth. Respond. For the space crew, communication with the Earth is vital. At the end of each day, the MCC issued ballistic information to the station so that in the event of an emergency, the crew could leave the orbit. And at a certain orientation to issue a braking impulse in order to land in a given area of the Earth. Otherwise, it's certain death. The professional communication systems at the station did not work, and we were rescued by amateur radio station which I illegally borrowed from my friend Kian, who graduated with me from the Riga Institute. The radio station was compact and had an autonomous battery, which turned out to be quite powerful. Soon the Agates made contact with the Earth. After 5 heroic days, the Mir station was brought back to life. This orbital complex flew for another 7 years. In 1994, Talgat Mussabayev didn't know that he would return here 4 years later for a long 208 days expedition. In the meantime, he was overwhelmed with the joy of the first victory. New tests awaited him, an incredible conquest of outer space.
Талгат, на тебя смотрит первая плоскость. То, что те поручни, которые по первой плоскости.
Ага, понятно.
In addition to the main flight program, Yuri Malenchenko and Talgat Mussabayev were given the task of spacewalks to repair the station.
И я открываю и сразу, значит, кричу: "О, Казахстан!" говорю.
I open the hatch and immediately yell, "Oh, I see Kazakhstan! I see Balkhash right under me, and there is Aral." "My homeland!" I shouted. And flight director, Volodya Solovyov, seeing how I got carried away, says, "This one seems alright, you don't have to worry about him. He can manage zero gravitation orientation." I immediately saw where we were. On one of such spacewalks, an emergency situation happened to Mussabayev. When he was moving from one structure to another, all of a sudden one of his safety halyards came off, while the other one remained in his hand. The astronaut found himself in free uncontrolled flight. It was a shock. When I saw that I was not attached to the station whatsoever and I was flying past the station, my whole life flashed before my eyes in a few seconds. Back in those days we were all atheists, true atheists. But in such an emergency in space you will believe in whatever you want. Someone pushed me and I found myself at a normal distance from the station and managed to grab it and attach myself to the station again. Having returned to the station, Talgat for the first time in his life pronounced Allah Akbar, addressing the Almighty. From that moment on, he would always take the Holy Quran, the main book of all Muslims, a capsule with his homeland soil and the blue flag of Kazakhstan with him into orbit. In space all senses are sharpened. The infinity of the universe and the silence of the black abyss inspire fear and anxiety. And only the Earth in its blue radiance evokes peace and delight. But the feeling of joy of returning from space is incomparable. It's like being born again. The smell of homeland, the warmth of native land, the faces of dear people, among whom he recognized the president of the country. This has never happened before. Nursultan Nazarbayev personally saw off and met the cosmonaut after 3 space flights. The first citizen of the independent Republic of Kazakhstan made an unparalleled 127 days-long flight into space. The first Kazakh national went into open space, accomplished a feat that none of us, compatriots, did. We would like to thank the Almighty, the spirits of our ancestors, for supporting our incomparable Talgat Mussabayev on this wonderful flight and congratulate him on his return to our native land.
Талгата Муссабаева на этот прекрасный полет и поздравим его с возвращением на нашу родную землю.
On January 29, 1998, an international crew consisting of Commander Talgat Mussabayev, flight engineer Nikolai Budarin, and French cosmonaut researcher Leopold Aerts took off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. At the Mir orbital station, they were awaited by the American Andrew Thomas, who had arrived a little earlier on the shuttle Discovery. The program of Mussabayev's and Budarin's spacewalks was unique and on the verge of human capabilities. Today they recalled that flight with a smile, those incredible, sometimes dangerous situations that literally haunted their crew. They spent more than 30 hours outside the station, which at that time became a Guinness record. First of all, they had to replace the damaged solar battery.
Талгат, ты ее там жестко не крепи. Сейчас поручни заберешь и будем переходить к треугольной гребенке.
The start and docking of the shuttle depended on this. The American side was afraid that during docking the solar battery could fold and hit the hull. Therefore, it urgently needed to be repaired. The solar battery repair was successful, but now the cosmonauts faced a more difficult task. Replacement of the old propulsion system with a new one. The remote propulsion system was attached to the Mir station in 1992. What was it for? When the complex grew and began to have the shape of a cruciform chamomile, the attitude control became complicated. It required high fuel consumption, especially during roll orientation, because engines that are located in the quantum had a smaller shoulder that led to unacceptable amounts of fuel consumption. Therefore, a remote propulsion system was invented, which was installed on a 14-meter truss.
Придумана выносная двигательная установка, которая была установлена на 14-метровую ферму.
The truss or sophora was assembled from metal tubes about 2 centimeters in diameter. At the very end, there is a 750-kilogram engine. Much dependent on the installation of the new propulsion system. Will the station be able to continue its flight? The system works as long as there is fuel, and just according to the calculations, it should have ended when the crew of Talgat Mussabayev arrived at the station.
И вот ВДУ это меня...
We've changed the propulsion system, a unique operation that no one else in the world has done before and after us. We did it.
В мире этого не делал.
Эндрю, молодец.
This unique operation was followed by the world's leading television channels, and the photos of American astronaut Andrew Thomas, taken from the Mir station, were recognized by NASA as some of the best photos. During 3 spacewalks, Talgat Mussabayev and Nikolai Budarin accomplished the impossible. When we unscrewed it, we fixed our feet in a transport ring while holding it on a 14-meter height. We released the mount. Now we were holding it with our bare hands. It was twisting our arms. And Sophora was shaking like that. It was very flimsy. A man in a spacesuit weighs about 300 kilograms, and this thing is 700 kilograms, almost a ton. Yet it still shakes like that, and the station is so far from us. You think to yourself, if it breaks off, we will all fly away with that engine. We said to Earth, give us the command already. When do we push? The task of the cosmonauts was to push this colossal device at a given moment in a precisely given direction. In case of a failure according to the laws of ballistics, the propulsion system could collide with the station on the next rotation cycle. Shortly after we received the command to push on 3-4, the dimensions must be the same, so that there is no twist when you're pushing the object. It should be 1 meter per second, set impetus to 1 meter per second, both sides at the same time. If one is stronger than the other, there will be a distortion, and it will start spinning. We pushed it safely away, and when we returned to the station, in half a turn, we saw a luminous ball on the side. The next day, flying over Houston, they received congratulations from the American astronauts. The Mir station was again operational and ready to receive American guests. Discovery launch started at the appointed time. After returning to the Earth, Mussabayev learned that he was about to make a 3rd flight into the Earth's orbit. This time he had a special mission to open the era of space tourism. On April 28, 2001, crew commander Talgat Mussabayev, flight engineer Yuri Baturin, and American billionaire Dennis Tito went to the International Space Station.
Okay, are you ready?
During these 3 flights, an extensive complex of Kazakhstani research and experiments was performed on the manned Mir station and the ISS. Over 20 research institutions of Kazakhstan took part in their development. Science has become part of Talgat Mussabayev's life. Based on research carried out in space, he defended his PhD thesis in Moscow, and then became a Doctor of Technical Sciences, a full member of the National Academy of Sciences of Kazakhstan, an academician of the International Academy of Astronautics. In 2015, a group of Kazakhstani scientists led by Talgat Mussabayev was awarded the State Prize of the Republic of Kazakhstan in the field of science and technology, named after Al-Farabi.
Ожидаем контакт подъема 11:40-15. Принято, подтверждаю.
In February 1993, on the basis of the Space Research Agency of the Kazakh SSR, the National Aerospace Agency was created, then the Baikonur Cosmodrome Administration, which was engaged in the preservation of the space complex. Russia's long-term lease of the Baikonur Cosmodrome was extended until 2050, and decisions were made to jointly implement a number of space programs. Kazakhstan tried to occupy its niche in space activities, but it was too early to talk about the industry. In 2007, the president of Kazakhstan appointed Mussabayev as chairman of the National Space Agency and set him a large-scale task to create a space industry. Kazkosmos received an independent ministry status. The time has come for practical deeds, and Mussabayev had to start from scratch. We have to create enterprises that operate in all directions, except for human spaceflight. Only superpowers such as Russia, the USA and China can do that. General, Center of Space Communications Akkol. No remarks. Spacecraft control is carried out in routine mode. Good job. Come, let's see. The Republican Center of Space Communication in Akkol was established in 2004 on the site of a former pioneer camp. This smart space city has unique technical capabilities. There is a control center for Kazakhstani space communication satellites. All government agencies of the Republic of Kazakhstan work through our devices, television, national television all go through KazSat. Viktor Lefter headed this center for many years. He actually started it from scratch. He will confirm just how much we fought together in order to transfer all Kazakhstani operators to switch to our satellites of the KazSat system. They all worked through foreign satellites before that. The satellites KazSat-2 and KazSat-3 fully satisfied the country's need for space communications, television broadcasting and the Internet. In addition to the KazSat space communication and broadcasting system, Kazakhstan today has two more satellite systems: RSS, remote sensing satellites, which carry out space monitoring for economic sectors, as well as for scientific and technological purposes, were created by Kazakhstani design engineers. For Talgat Mussabayev, it was essential to create and strengthen the status of the space agency. All 6 enterprises related to space exploration were gathered and united under the wing of Kazkosmos. One of them is the national company Kazakhstan Garish Sapary. The company's mission was ambitious: to create ground infrastructure for modern space technologies in the capital of Kazakhstan. Today, it is difficult to imagine that this place was once a wasteland. Now, in the city limits of the Kazakhstani capital, there are buildings of the assembly and spacecraft testing complex. It can provide a full cycle of work from design to assembly and testing of spacecraft weighing from 100 kilograms to 6 tons. Garish Sapary system was mainly used to assemble remote sensing satellites, but the assembly and testing complex can assemble and test satellites of any complexity: scientific, remote sensing, telecommunications and even military.
Дистанционного зондирования Земли, телекоммуникационные спутники и даже, если нужно, военные спутники.
This is high-tech equipment, mostly European. In these spacious, crystal-clear workshops, satellites undergo radio frequency, acoustic, vibration, as well as electromagnetic compatibility tests. Creation of own satellites is an expensive and science-intensive direction of the space industry. You can't do that without reliable and professional partners who have knowledge, experience, and most importantly, the desire to share this experience. Kazakhstan signed a contract for the creation of 2 remote sensing satellites with the leading European space company EADS Astron. Then, a French-Kazakh joint venture Galam was created. In 2017, Talgat Mussabayev left the post of the head of Kazkosmos. 10 years of intense, eventful, grandiose projects, the joy of victories and the bitterness of disappointment are left behind. But he left light-hearted. The most ambitious and responsible task of his life was accomplished. Kazakhstan created its own space industry. Talgat Mussabayev is 70. Is it plenty or little? Depending on the context, on the scale of the universe, an instant, in the earthly dimension, a whole life. He dreamt and became a cosmonaut, worked for almost a year in 3 international expeditions. For the first time in the history of cosmonautics, Mussabayev unfolded the Kazakhstani flag in orbit and opened the era of space tourism. He received the rank of Lieutenant General of Air Force and many well-deserved awards. Mussabayev is still worried about the space industry of Kazakhstan, fighting for it and protecting it at the legislative level within the walls of the country's parliament.